Thanks, Tim. Getting the slides to work. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Redbubble from me as well. I'm Tom, as Tim mentioned. Just a few things up front. So we got a little hashtag down there, which is barely readable. It's art plus text, so if you guys want to tweet, Facebook or whatever, feel free to. We got plenty of time for questions in the end, so unless there's something super urgent, just hold on. So I'm going to talk today about some user research, and the title of the talk is Stop Guessing. So basically what I want you to take away from this talk is how you can learn more about your users, find out why they do and what they're doing, and get a better product out in the market. So about us, the reason I'm saying about us is because I have a lovely co-worker, Abla, who is based in the US, who's helped me develop and prepare that talk. So she's our main user researcher, and she's also a UX designer at Redbubble, and she kind of helps teams out whenever they have to user research, interview, or just test something. And I'm a front and back end engineer here at Redbubble. My team has done extensive user research over the last half year, working on a part of our website, and we tried lots of techniques. So I'll be presenting for you today. Abla can't be here, unfortunately. So this is what I'm going to talk about today. First, a really quick definition. I'm not going to bore you to death about what user research is. Then a little bit about how it all works. The main questions answered. We're going to jump in that, and after that, a good chunk of what we learned, how we applied it, and what we've taken away from all this user research. So what's user research? Really, user research is, the first half is understanding the user, and by the user I mean what they're doing, why they're doing it, when they're doing it, the needs, anything around it. So the motivations, as I said here. So really, at the core is, if you don't understand your user, then how could you possibly develop a product that fits the user that you want to develop it for? And you do that understanding through research. So the research, which we're going to cover in this talk, is all about understanding what the user needs and wants. And we do that through feedback, through direct feedback, through observation, through indirect and direct technologies and techniques. Analysis, so I'm pretty sure most of you have used Google Analytics or some other analytics tool in one way or the other. That's also a form of user research, because you're actually analyzing the user and looking what they're doing. So this is really the basic definition of user research, is really understanding the user through research, and there are different ways to do that. So why, who, when, and what? So these are, in my opinion, the main questions need to be answered. So why is basically, why is that important? Why do we want to understand about the user, and why do we want to do that research? Who is, in this case, who in the team, like who in the team should do the research? When, it's pretty obvious. So when during the development cycle or through a concepting phase should we do it? And what is more about how to go about some user research? So why? There are a few reasons for that, and again, first part of user research, understanding users, so you understand where users are coming from, so can you relate to the users. So usually when you look at a website, then you think differently to what the actual user does. Which brings me directly to the second point, that you're not the user. As much as you use your website or app or product or whatever you're developing, you think differently than what your user does. And until you understand what the actual person you're developing for thinks, you have basically no clue. You can might as well hold a finger in the air and guess, because it could be 50-50 or worse. A good way to visualize this, or a very prominent way to visualize this, is our personas. I'm pretty sure some of you have heard personas. Personas basically just describing 1 or 2 or 5 different ways, like regular customers or regular users for your product. And the second reason, or the second big chunk about why, is that analytics won't tell you the why. So analytics can tell you what people are doing, and they might give you a little bit of insight, but generally you won't understand why people are doing that. So all of that understanding is to actually save you time from building the wrong thing. As I said before, unless you understand your user, unless you understand what they're doing, you might as well be building the wrong thing because you don't know. Analytics, if you just look at numbers, you might have a lucky shot here or there because numbers go up or numbers go down. But unless you understand what people want and what people need, you might as well be building the wrong thing. Next, so who? Again, who is who from your team or from your team of developers or designers, engineers? It doesn't matter who it is. And we're firm believers that everyone should do that. And you're asking, but there are user researchers out there. I can just palm it off to someone and they do it for me. And honestly, everyone should do user research. It doesn't matter if you're a designer, if you're an engineer, if you're a BA, your CEO, your CTO, your C, whatever. Customer support, like we've done at marketing, it all helps for people to understand who they're developing for. Someone can make an assumption about something in your product or with your website or whatever. Unless they do some user research, they don't understand. Unless the customer support sits with someone, they don't find out exactly what customer support related things they want to find out. So if I give that to some user research expert and they come back with a list of recommendations, then they don't have an idea what customer support wants, what design wants, what engineers want. Having all these groups involved in customer research makes sure that you cover all the bases and you cover all the important things that you want to find out. When? So when is pretty obvious. So most people do it early. So they might have a user research session at the start of their project and then that's it. Important thing here is you should do it often and you should do it continuously. So once you have the basic user research down and you do some work on your product, come back to it, put some assumptions in, come back to it, reevaluate, come over it. So because after a while, you don't know whether the interpretation that you got from your first user research is true, is still true. So generally, during coding, brainstorming, after release, design, all of this is important to come back to it. So I have a good example later on where we had some early user research, we had some assumptions, and then we came back, dug deeper, and we found out that it was completely wrong. And people talked to us one way in the first place, and then when we asked in a different way, the reception was completely different. What? So what is all about? How do I go about conducting user research? So very important is you have to start with the goals. So unless you start with the goals, you might as well sit with someone over beer or over coffee and just talk randomly about the weather. You want to find out about something that's wrong or that you think is wrong with the product or you want to improve it. You want to start with a goal and you want to formulate the goal. Second part is the user. So in this case, who do you want to talk to? You might, if you're solving a problem around customer support, you want to talk to someone who has been in touch with customer support. If you want to look at new audiences, you might want to go out and just talk to random people on the street and show them a product on your tablet or show them a physical product that you developed. It's very important to know, based on the goals, who you want to talk to and who you're bringing in or who you're going out to. And the last step, other than actually running a session, which I'll cover at length in the second half, is debrief with a team. So if you have different departments or different parts of the team sitting in a user research session, then everybody has a different take on it. So if a person says something about returning the product, then you as a developer or as a designer think differently than the customer support. So it's very important that everybody who has listened in or even just had a video screen of it, listens in, talks to you, and everybody comes out of it with the same set of assumptions so that you cover off the whole topic. So these three things are basically how you go about running it and afterwards, and then obviously you wanna actually run the session. So this is just a sample size, which I found the other day, of techniques that you can use for user research. It is by no means exhaustive. It's just really just a small sample size. And there are a few things in there. So first of all, I want to talk about the x-axis. So that's qualitative versus quantitative. So qualitative is really you talk to the user directly. So you have face-to-face or at least video-to-video conversation. Quantitative is where you prepare something and the user does it by themselves and they come back with numbers or they come back with answers. Attitudinal versus behavioral is attitudinal means what the user says or what the person says, and behavioral is what they do. These are two very different things. Even though a user might say one thing, they might do a completely different thing. That's very important to distinguish. And then there's all these techniques. So I'm pretty sure most of you have heard of A/B testing, which is the top right corner. So you actually watch what the user does, but it's no direct interaction with the user. On the other end of the scale, in the bottom left corner, you have interviews. So you sit down with the user, you talk to them directly, but you don't. Sometimes you observe them, but if you just talk to them, they might as well say whatever they want, and it's true to their behavior or it's not. And then there's all these other techniques that kind of cover off one or the other part. And what I'm really trying to get at here is just doing one thing is not enough. Because if you just do an A/B testing, you will never really understand the user. But if you just do interviews, then you might as well be tricked and people say a thing but do another thing. So it's really important to, in your user research, to cover off not all the corners, but at least a few of the corners to make sure that you're covered. So there are a few things in here, for example, eye tracking, which can be either or, which is a good way to kind of get a basic understanding what's going on. There's also card sorting or ethnographic field studies, which is basically just you go out to the user in their own environment and talk to them there. So for example, we did with some of our users, we just went into their homes. We just asked, can we come to you and watch you use our website? So they were comfortable in their home. We just sat in the back, watched them. We didn't say anything. And that's how you can conduct a user research session as well, if your users are willing to do it. So I will go in the next part of the talk, I will go into some of these in more detail. What we're really focusing on at Redbubble, or what we're mainly doing, other than some of the other ones, is interviews and A/B testing. These are really our cornerstones of our way of working. So either we do first A/B testing, then we follow up with user interviews, or we do it the other way around. We have some other things in here, but these are really our two cornerstones about the way we work. So jumping straight into the second part of the talk, which will cover off a whole range of experience that we had and a whole range of things we tested and things we found out. First of all, I don't know who has heard of Redbubble, but just a really quick overview just to give you guys an understanding about what our problems are, what our unique challenges are. So we, in one sentence or half a sentence, we're really a marketplace for artists to sell their art on an array of products. Currently we have about 20-ish products. We have 10 million unique designs, and we have that relates to about 50 million products, because not all designs are available on all products, and so on and so forth. And really, one of the unique challenges is we have two sets of users. We have people that want to buy the products, that want to find a unique work on a product, and we have artists who want to upload their work and want to make it available and want to make as many sales as they possibly can. And there are different needs and goals for both of these user groups, and that's where we kind of different to some companies, because we have to make sure that we're not just working towards one and completely neglecting the other, because if we don't get any artwork from artists anymore, we can shut down, but if we don't sell anything, we can shut down as well. So, first example is product reviews. Just to give you a bit of a background, so in the last 6 months, what I mentioned is we basically redid our product page, and I will show a picture of that later on. And the first thing we did was kind of understand what customers really want from a product page, what they want to see, what they base their buying decision on. So the first thing we did was we did some card sorting. So basically we gave online and physically. We gave people a list of features on a product page, which we compiled from an Amazon product page and the Redbubble product page. We mixed them up in a big bucket, and we got them to rate them about, this is just important. So from top to bottom, how important is it? And the left hand, the online version, was they can rate it from, I use this one every time, I really need that, to I use it sometimes, use it most of the time. And customer reviews wasn't on our radar at all at the start, mainly because we have this unique challenge of supporting 50 million products. How do you get product reviews for 50 million products? That's almost impossible, because most items get sold once or twice over 5 years. So how do you do that? But having this there really put it on our radar, and we got thinking, how should we go about putting product reviews on the radar? So what we did with that information was we basically got, all right, reviews are on our radar now. What are we going to do about it? So we started concepting around it. We started thinking, how can we actually support product reviews within our website so that people understand that they're not looking at a review about the artwork itself, but about the product. We're also having comments on our website, which is mainly for artists' comments, so comments about the artwork. So there were these challenges of making sure people understand reviews are about the product, comments are about the actual design. So we did a few concepting works, and we did a few rounds of interviews and just observational studies.
But like when I see a review like this, where it says, like someone says, I messed up my order details, t-shirt was sent to the wrong address, and then Redbubble fix that up. That's what I want to hear, because I know that they're not care about, once they've got the money, they don't care about customer service anymore.
So does it influence you at all that these reviews are on the actual site for Redbubble?
Look, if there were bad reviews as well, it would help, because then it's more transparent. I don't tend to believe a review when they've got like 5 stars, it's great, the next one, it's amazing. Everyone has different opinions, so even though it might be great for me, it might be horrible for someone else. I want to have both sides of the coin.
Yep.
With the reviews, are you suspicious about like overly positive reviews?
Some with a t-shirt, yeah.
Yes.
Usually you don't get those sort of reviews from something that's simple. If it's like, A with 100 pluses, you sort of think, well, this is kind of I'm not buying that. That's not as a figure of speech.
So when you shop for clothes, usually, what are the things that you look for?
I do look at product reviews a lot, because just with the sizing and material, so especially for a t-shirt, I can't really tell if this is like a one of those soft t-shirts or the harder, like cardboardish ones. So usually in a product review, someone will say that. Or especially for myself, if I'm shopping for myself, and my husband, because he's really tall, but I like to know what the size, if it's running small or big or short or tall, whatever. I like to see those comments in here.
Okay.
I don't really care about like they sent to the wrong address, because I usually feel like that's a user error, someone just not doing it right.
So these were called observational usability studies. So what we did was we had a concept. This wasn't even a full website. It was just a Photoshop concept that we put in front of them, which was a little bit interactive, but not really. We gave them a task, and then we followed up with questions afterwards. So we observed them doing a task. So for example, the task in this case was to find or to buy that t-shirt, to add that t-shirt to the cart, and then afterwards we asked them what's important to you, what are you looking out for, and then we get this kind of information. And there were like interesting things in there. For example, the biggest one that jumped out to us when we did that was that people want to see negative reviews. So you would think, if we have all 5 stars and all thumbs up, that's awesome. People want to see that, but people get suspicious, and people really think, if there's no negative review in there, then this might be fake. These might be just coming from the website itself. And without actually talking to the user, you would never find out about that. You had no clue what the user thinks about that and what it does. So we found that out mainly because our first concept only had 5 stars and only had thumbs up in there. And then they said, I don't trust this. Doesn't look right to me. Does look fake to me. So this we did in the office here and in San Francisco, where our partner office is, and we just got. We did this through what we called a rapid prototyping week. So we got a new prototype every day, and we got new 3 or 4 people in every day, and we evaluated from the day before, like we did a new concept based on what we heard before, and then just rapidly iterated over that, and we got that feedback, and that's how we iterated over all the review stuff.
There's a lot of existing information already around reviews from Amazon anyway.
Yes, and
This exact topic of if you bury the bad stuff, then you'll lose customers.
yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of stuff around most of the topics. The important thing is that our website is slightly different, and most websites are slightly different. Like I read an interesting article the other day that more than 50 search results on a search page are counterproductive to your actual sales. And then, but Etsy has 100. And why is Etsy doing that? Because their website is unique. We have 96. We tested that as well. So we had 40 and we had 96, and people actually prefer just to scroll through. It all depends what you're showing. And reviews in this case, because we had reviews and comments, we had to make sure that they're kind of distinguished. So yes, and we did take a lot of research into account. We just want to make sure that it hits our spot and it hits our target audience there.
How do you recruit people?
We have, so we did that ourselves by just looking up people who bought stuff 2 months ago and just sending an email asking them if they're interested. That was our first attempt. The second attempt, we've outsourced that. So we actually get people, we give them a brief about what kind of people we want, say people that have shopped at Redbubble 2 years ago in the last 2 years, please get in touch with them, which is much easier because it actually takes a lot of time to recruit people. But there are companies out there really helpful with that, who get people into your office.
Did you have to pay people to do that? Or
What we usually do is we give them a voucher. So we tell them you're going to sit here for half an hour, and you get a $60 or $70 Amazon or Redbubble voucher, whatever you prefer, and they're happily doing that. All right, so what they really made happen is that reviews got into the final concept of our product page, and this is the final version that we put out. Which has a very basic, at this point, review system. So we tested more complicated ones. We tested one with multiple star ratings, multiple answers. We put out a very simple one because we found that people really just want to read a sentence. They just want to get a good feeling about it, or want to just have someone saying this product fades out and this product is crap. Just really, we try to get people to just comment on the product, and we just show a star rating next to it. Interestingly, and that comes back to what I said before, that you should do continuous user research. When we asked our artists about that, initially they said, oh yeah, reviews are fine. After we released it, they were up in arms against it, and they were completely, very unhappy, let's put it that way, because they then said, how do you can't put a review that's not about my product, that's someone else's product that they sold, and if you show that, then they're not going to buy my product or whatever. So it took us a lot of convincing and a lot of talking to artists, and we're actually iterating over that in the near future as well, just to make sure that artists understand what this is about and that it's actually beneficial for them, that they're getting more sales out of it. But this is, we didn't hear that at the start, but we heard it afterwards. So it's very important that you come back and continue user research.
So was there a measurable lift to revenue once implemented?
There was, with the reviews itself, we didn't hit quite the mark that we wanted. With the whole thing, we had a measurable lift in revenue and sales around that, yeah. So I'm just going to go through a few more examples that are a bit smaller. So apparel sizing chart. So at the start, before we did experimenting, we had our lovely info button underneath Add to Cart, and you had to click on that to get the sizing chart. Or actually, there's also a link underneath the actual sizing. And most of our customer complaints or most of our customer returns are from wrong sizes. So we said, why is that? Don't people understand the sizing chart? And we experimented with that. So we put the sizing chart right underneath Add to Cart without having to click a button or without having to scroll or anything. And we also experimented with a few formats. So we had an interactive format. We had a format where you just saw one of the sizes and you had to click through and all that kind of stuff. And it turns out that in this case, for our audience, if you just have a simple sizing chart, even though it might look complicated, people like that, and this alone gave us 6% plus in Add to Carts, surprisingly. So it's really small things, and this, again, the trigger here was the biggest, what's the biggest support question? What are people complaining about? What are people returning for? So there are different triggers that should lead into user research, and sometimes it's an interview itself that leads into a feature. Sometimes it's coming from the other end and it's just another department asking why is it happening, and then you can do some user research about that. Another fun example. So again, this is our little configuration screen, and the money back guarantee is what we were experimenting about. So in our interviews that we did during our rapid prototyping week, we heard some people say, I like when there is a 100% satisfaction guarantee, money back guarantee on the website. That just gives me confidence. I like that. I'm more inclined to shop. So what we did this time the other way around. So we had this qualitative feedback. So we started running an A/B test. So our A/B test was one variant with the money back guarantee and the other without it. So just Add to Cart and then the info button. What we had was negative 8% in Add to Cart and 10% negative in conversion. And so that again triggered. So why is it happening? Why is it happening? So we had a few more user research sessions just asking about that, and then it turns out that our initial feedback, because it was a small sample size, was kind of skewed towards one direction. So it turns out that people, if they see that, they think, oh, it's got to be a dodgy place. If they have to put that up on the website, then they're not right. So I'm not going to shop there. I don't trust them. So yeah, exactly. So this is a really good example about that it's worth doing at least two ways of user research. Just analytics is not right. It's not good enough. If we would have just believed users in this case, we would have just chucked that on and said, we're done, and we would have seen a massive drop. But kind of validating data with interviews and interviews with data or whatever other user research techniques out there is really helpful.
Did you confirm if it was maybe the wording or the design?
We actually had a couple of variants. So one was 100% satisfaction guarantee, the other one was money back guarantee, and 100% satisfaction guarantee didn't quite perform as badly, but it was still negative across the board. So it's really just the fact that it's up there and the fact that the website shows it.
How did you test it while limiting the negative impact?
Well, so we only showed, so when our experiments run, we only showed to say 20% of our overall user base, so 10% saw this variant. So yes, overall, we might have taken a little hit on the sales, but that's worth finding out that this is actually doing it. If we would have just put it out, then we would have had 100% of users.
100% guarantee that it didn't work.
Exactly. Exactly. This is a very interesting one. Again, all these experiments are around the product page, and this time around the delivery date. So this is really, every time we talk to people, they want to see product information, they want to see reviews, and they want to know when it arrives, because obviously you don't want to buy something that arrives in 4 weeks when you have a birthday present having to get out in 2 weeks' time. So we put that out on the website, again, A/B testing it. And we just had this simple thing underneath Add to Cart that says, look, if you buy this today and you're in Australia, which we guess because we're engineers, It will arrive at the 24th of March, which is 2 weeks or 1 week away. So the results, they were very mixed. So we have a few products, especially for Australia, that ship from Australia, and we have a few products that ship from the US. So interestingly, if we put that out, if the delivery date was 1 week or less, it was actually positive and people were converting more. If it was further away than 1 week, then we actually negative impact on the add to cart and conversion rate. So it was very interesting to find out that it's beneficial if it's a short amount of time, and it's completely unbeneficial if it's further away. So we actually haven't, excuse me, we haven't iterated over that. So we could have just shown it if it's less than a week and hide it completely, but that would give the user bad experience if they see one product and the other. So we put this to sleep for now, and we're going to come back to it at some other day. But just some very interesting findings. Product information. So this is an interesting technique that we did. So it was a slight variation of the user interview. So what we did is the people came in here, we sat them down, we gave them a task saying, look, you can buy any apparel that you want. Here's a $50 voucher, and you can actually ship it to your home address. So on top of the Amazon or whatever voucher, we actually allowed them to just sit down for 10-15 minutes, browse around the site, buy it, and they actually get it delivered. And then, after they clicked checkout, after they entered that information, we actually went outside, got the garment that they ordered, and handed it over to them and said, so this is what you ordered. Not with a design, just a blank one, but from a product perspective, handed it to them and said, after doing all that, is that what you expected? Compared to what you saw on the website, what's the product like? Is it up there with what you expected? Is it better? Is it worse? Why? So it was a very interesting experiment just to find out what people really think about the product they ordered, because they're actually going to receive one in the mail in 2 weeks' time. So they can give us unbiased feedback, or almost unbiased feedback, about the actual product without trying to please us, because they're actually going to get one of these and they bought one with one of our vouchers. So this was just a slight variation of it was just a slight variation of an interview session that actually Upla came up with that one. So very interesting to see the responses and just the feedback. And the technique was interesting because you actually can involve, you not just have to be on the website or an app. If you develop an app, you can actually bring it back to real life and just complete the circle if you're delivering something or if you're producing something. I want to finish off this little section with a few hints of how to interview, because as I said at the start, we at Redbubble, we're focusing on interviews and A/B testing. We're doing some other things as well, but these are our two cornerstones. So if you get a person in, or if you're going off and you're talking to your boss, if you have a boss, and asking them, can I do some user research on my next product or my next project, how do you actually interview if people come in? So there are a few hints I can give you. So the first one is, the first thing almost you have to say when they come in, you have to say, look, it's okay if you're being honest. Don't please us. We're not trying to test you. You have to tell us what's good and what's bad and what's ugly. It's really important, otherwise you're not going to get honest feedback. Then never ask anyone what they want. So the best way to do it is either observe it or give them a task and then let them talk you through it. So if you ask them what they want, then they come up with, who knows, really. You really got to keep it inside the goals and got to keep it contained. Otherwise, they're just going to go overboard. Questions. So it's very important to ask open-ended questions. If you just ask, do you like this? Yes/no questions. You're just going to get a yes/no answer. You're not going to find out why people are doing this, what people are thinking, and what they're needing. And asking whys. So always, if possible, follow up with why. So if someone clicked the button and then why? I'm pretty sure some of you have heard of the 5 whys. It's probably not necessarily to do it that to bring it that far, to take it that far all the time, but a couple why questions after every task is definitely worth worth doing. And the last big point is listen. So if you talk, then you're not going to learn anything other than that you're an awesome talker maybe. But if the other person talks and you listen, then that's where you actually learn. That's when you find out what they're thinking, what they're feeling. If you make them feel comfortable and they're speaking open-minded, then we had people in here who wouldn't stop after an hour and 15 and just kept talking and talking and talking. And sometimes it goes a bit off board, but you can bring them back, and then you get so much information. It's ridiculous, really, in just one session. And that's pretty much it about our examples and about the whole talk. So there are a few really good resources out there. So a couple books that we can recommend. I'm happy to give anyone the details afterwards. And a couple blogs out there that are really good at just getting into this whole user research topic and understanding what's going on. The first is a good blog that has new updates every week about how to interview, how to do user research, and all that kind of stuff. Again, I'm more than happy to share that with anyone who's keen. And last but not least, thanks for Temple Brewing for the beers. And thank you.